At the time of this video, you should be comfortable at least to a basic level of using the ArcGIS Pro environment, and we'll move forward under that assumption. Tutorials 1 and 2, or 1-1 and 1-2, as well as the Esri assignments where we moved around Europe, you got acquainted with just navigating around the interface. This is the graphic user interface that we're looking at right here. What the different buttons do, the tabs, adding data, and then tutorials 2-1, 2-2, 2-4, 5, 6, and 7 all allowed you to symbolize your data very strategically using different resources. And then tutorials 4-1 and 4-3 helped you to import spatial data into your project and tabular data as well, and then complete a table join. And ultimately that's where we need to be. So you can take your independent research and join it to a spatial component, do some strategic symbolization and tell a story with it. You can get through the process of analyzing patterns, etc. And we'll go through all that. But if you are not comfortable with that at this point, or if you have not completed those assignments at this point, you're highly encouraged to go back and do that, because when time is of the essence, it will become more frustrating. So make sure that you've got those under your belt. Okay, moving forward, we need our tabular data and our spatial data to be conveniently available. In a workplace, you may have a common directory where this takes place, and in this case I created a folder under documents and a folder that I know exactly what I'm doing with. This is my GIS location analytics folder, and I have my tabular data, which is the lecture 5 stats ready spreadsheet, and that's the same thing as lecture 3. I just renamed it to lecture 5 so that I could keep track and I knew what was going on. Okay. Also, I have my spatial data, which is the folder on the top, which is the 2015 state boundaries. And I can go into that and I can see all of my critical items. I also, just for reference, maybe a practice a habit, the PDF that's there is one that came from which files mean what in the Tigerline web interface. Okay. Then lastly, again, as a point of reference, I try to keep the list of do not do's handy, mainly because when you're moving quickly and you forget something and it doesn't work right, it's just right there, easy to go. It's a small file. All right, so let's get into our data and verify it. Okay, so if you need to move everything, pause the video, go collect it into one location that's convenient for you. I encourage you to create a folder under documents at this point, but go ahead and pause the video, come on back when you're ready. All right, so presumably since we're moving forward, you're ready. Let's inspect our tabular data. See where we're at. Our subject is states, right? This is the name of the state. And your file will probably look something more like this, where subject is in the middle. And one of the things you want to watch out for, it's not the formatting, is that sometimes this looks like formatting and maybe there's some spaces in there. So go ahead and maybe double click into that cell and do some backspacing, or if you're more comfortable working in the formula bar, just kind of make sure that there's no spaces in there. For the sake of simplicity, I encourage you to just select that cell or all of the cells and just left format them. That way you're not surprised by, oh wow, there's some spaces in there I missed. Okay. Also, yours will say total population with a space. And if we recall our list of do not do's, we have um, spaces as a big problem, right? Because in the back end of the program, depending on what type of tool you're running, it's going to see that space as a separation between commands, and it'll throw it off. Also, we have the special characters. We have beginning with numbers and reserved field names. Now, in your research, you're going to definitely want to look for spaces. You're going to definitely want to look for special characters if there's like a hashtag, like maybe you put in some sort of descriptor or a slash, right? That's a big one as well. Special characters pop up a lot in individual research, depending on where you get your data source. And reserved names show up a lot too because it's convenient just to say date, especially if you're going to start comparing dates, you're going to map multiple dates through one table. You're going to want to definitely check for those. But our table here is pretty simple, where subject, it was just formatted a little funny. Total population, we can remove a space. And really, a very common way of handling this would be to abbreviate it so it's simpler. Maybe call it tote pop or something like that. I think for the sake of working with just regular business people, not researchers, we'll just remove the space so that we know that's total population. Okay. So we'll hit enter. Male, there's no spaces. Double checking that. Female, no spaces. There's no special characters, no reserved words in these. And if you have multiple tables or multiple columns, multiple attributes past this, you're going to want to do that for every single one. Really, after the first couple, it just becomes really routine. It's not that big of a deal, but you want to be sure, because halfway through it, when it goes a little weird, oftentimes you can trace it back to this part. So let's go ahead and save that. Make sure we're all good. And let's go ahead and close that. Get rid of that. And now I'm looking at my folder with all of my goodies in it. All right, this is the stuff I need. We know that Lecture 5 Stats Ready is where we started. And what we want to do now is maybe give it a new name, and we'll call it Join Ready. Because the purpose of this exercise is to execute a join of material, of research, of data that's important to you and to your mission. Right. So now we have this set up. Let's go into our state data, and you can open up your database file if you so choose. And one of the best ways to do this, my computer thinks I speak a different language. One of the best ways to do this is maybe to open up a database or an Excel file. Just open it up and kind of just do like a drag and drop type of thing. Right, so just create this here, and I'll just click and then just drag that DBF in here and open it up. There's several ways to get through this process. That seems to be one of the easiest ones for students who are not familiar with Excel to grasp onto. But in this case, we want to see that the name is equal to the name of the state. So we have subject in one and name in the other. And recall from one of the previous units that we're going to overline that or overlap those, that those are going to become the one-to-one join. We're going to see all that data connected. Okay. All right, so we've inspected all of this. We do not want to save it. We don't want to change it. We know it's good. And we've inspected our data. We know we're ready to move forward. We're feeling good about this. So open up ArcGIS Pro. Go ahead and pause the video just because it'll take a little bit of time for you to open that up. And now let's create a map project. Now if you open up just a new one, just a new project, you're going to end up with, it'll look just like this catalog. And you'll need to insert a new map so that you have this item here. So for those of you that don't create a map project, you just create a new project. You'll have this issue here, so then you'll want to insert a new map. It'll create that map, and it just adds a base layer, and it just makes it a little easier sometimes referentially to say, okay, well, I'm dealing with this location. Okay, so here we have this representation of the continuous 48, and we need to bring in our data to a convenient place that can be shared. Now there's many ways to share. I'm going to teach you a very specific way so that you and I can communicate as a professor and student, so that I can kind of see where you're at, and if something goes awry I can help you out. But under your catalog pane, which should come up by default, right? Should come up by default. If not, if you recall, you're going to go to View and then Catalog pane, and then this will pop up. Okay. Under databases, this is created by default when you open up a new project. This is your project geodatabase. So we're going to open that up, and you'll notice that nothing is there. There's nothing there, which means you have no data stored with your project. Your data is somewhere else, and we need to go do that. Now, according to the book, right, if we're going to import, the textbook on page 129 has a task where you're going to import some shape files and a data table into a file geodatabase, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to explore a couple of ways to do that. First, it's by the book. It's so easy. You could turn to that page and you can follow along. But if you go to the Analysis tab and you go to Tools and you type in feature class to feature class, then this is the search result. It's just querying all of the different tools available. Now I'm going to select conversion tool at this point, and really what it does is it takes you over to toolboxes. This is everything, right? This is everything that's kind of easily packaged. These come as a default with the project. You can create your own toolboxes at some point, but right now this is the default portion. Feature class to feature class. We're going to select this one, and now we're going to input our features, right? We're going to input, so this is a logical dialog box. We're going to start at the top, input features, and it should start at wherever your project is. Navigate to wherever you have your data, your spatial data specifically stored. So I had mine in Documents, GIS, Location Analytics, and then the state data. And it's going to query everything in there, and it's going to look for whatever's available. So I'm going to actually call it, or I'm actually going to select my state data. All right. And then it's going to say, hey, where do you want to put it? I'm going to input from here, and then I'm going to output to there, and we want to keep it with our project. The Lecture 5 exercise is our project, right? Or maybe if you have a slightly different name, however you have it named, but this is just what I have it named here. So what are we going to call it when it gets to our particular geodatabase, our project geodatabase? And let's just call it states, or state boundaries 2015. Okay, we're not violating any database rules with that, but we're being descriptive. And then select Run. Give it a chance to go. Result times may vary, but one of the great giveaways is that you'll notice here it is. It's shown up on your map. This is very good news. Now we see it in our table of contents. We could maybe change the color. At this point, it's not terribly important, but let's just give it a little bit more. Let's give it a more generic term here where it's just some outlines, right? We're going to close our symbology. Let's close our geoprocessing at this time and keep it really simple. Notice that under our databases folder and Lecture 5 Exercise Geodatabase, we now have State Boundaries 2015. So this spatial data is now within our project. It does not reside outside of it. This is really important at a later point. Now let me give you another trick, because now we need to bring in our tabular data, right? So our spatial data and our tabular data in order to join them together. Instead of going through the analysis table, we can actually right-click on our geodatabase, and we can import. I think mine's going off the screen here. You can right-click and then import a table. And that can be a little easier than going through the other process, right? Just a right-click, there you are. And we're going to go navigate to our tabular data, which mine is in the documents, and then I created a folder as GIS Location Analytics, and this is my join ready, and this is my one tab. Now in this methodology you can have multiple tabs. We just didn't rename it, we kept it simple, but you could rename it and keep it that way. So let's select OK, and let's give it an output name. What should our table be? Well, in this case it's the demographics 2015 gender. Okay. And we're going to select run. And on the left side in our table of contents, we should see that pop up. So we're good to go. Let's go ahead and close the geoprocessing pane and look at catalog, and we now have spatial boundaries or state boundaries 2015, demographics 2015 gender, and we have everything we need to conduct ourselves for a table join. Now for this process, the table join can be done either directly the same way you would see it in the folder, so in the workbook, where the data tab has a joins option or joins command, and then you can add a join, and the geoprocessing will come up here as well. You can also right click, so I just closed that, and I'm going to right click on state boundaries, and I'm going to create a join. I'm a big fan of right click because so many really quick options are generated for you right up front, instead of having to sort through the different tabs. And especially as you become more proficient, this may be an option for you to adopt just for the sake of speed. But either way will work as long as you can add a join. And it's going to start with whatever it is you did, you selected, the layer you selected in order to perform the join. Please make a note of this, especially when you're under time pressure. Always start with the spatial boundary. Always start with the spatial boundary. So in our geoprocessing, we have layer name or table view. This is our state boundaries. This is our spatial component. And we want to input based on name. This is why we double checked what we had before. So we're going to select name. And in the table, we're going to select subject. Now, oftentimes it will take a guess at what you're after, but always verify that. Don't really trust it because it doesn't always guess correctly. It just does it really to help you out. So select subject, because remember, subject in our table was the state name. Keep all target features means that if you have a boundary, like a state that has no data, then it will still show up, but it will have no additional attributes. It'll just be null. If you do not select that, then you'll end up with holes in your spatial boundaries accordingly. So it just kind of depends what type of data you have. I have a complete set of tabular matches, so we'll move forward. So hit run, and it says completed successfully. How do we know the advantage of this? And so under state boundaries, we can select our attribute table under data, or you can right click and go to attribute table. Again, whatever your preference is. This is not about you selecting someone else's style. It's about you knowing what options are available and settling into something that's comfortable for you. Okay, so under state boundaries, we have everything we saw in the spatial data, the DBF, and we ended with the area of land and area of water, interpolation of lat long, and then shape length and area, so you have perimeters and then internal areas. And then lo and behold, we now have attached to that is the subject, total population, male and female, and this is exactly what we had done before. So this is a really good sign that our join is completed. Now I'm going to close this, and we're going to zoom into the contiguous 48 states. If we just a quick recall on your navigation, so under by using the shift button, I can do a zoom rectangle. So I'm going to do a zoom rectangle and maybe catch Hawaii and a piece of Alaska, just a little bit of that, right? I'm going to close my catalog pane, maybe get a little bit more in there. This is good, just to start with.